Hello, slayers of subluxation. It's Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge and the Chiropractic Research Breakdown podcast. I'm really excited to do something a little bit different for you guys on this episode. I was recently interviewed by student Johnny Reuter for his Legendary Chiropractor podcast, which is great. You should totally check that out. And we went through some different topics regarding research and the subluxation slayers group and the podcast, and I think you guys might enjoy it, and I hope you guys get some value from it. Part of the reason that I wanted to share it with you guys as well is because you guys kind of, believe it or not, are my comfort zone. Through some of the events that were groups that we're all a part of, I actually know many of people who listen to this podcast personally, but I've also looked at it and seen people from other countries besides the U.S., people who I've never met before, lots of people who reach out to me on a daily basis who I have no idea who you are, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you better as we go throughout and come to different events together and stuff like that within our profession. But really, when it comes down to it is, regardless of how well I know all you guys, this podcast and really is my comfort zone. I know that with you guys, with this audience, I can really say anything that I want, and you guys are just kind of into it. And I really just wanted to thank you guys so much for that. When I speak outside of this group, get super, super, super nervous. And I'll tell you, even though I was being interviewed, for something that I've talked about 1,000 times, I basically pooped a brick before I went on this. So you can definitely I maybe even see how nervous I got talking about a topic that I'm really passionate about. And I just thought you guys might actually just find it, if not valuable, at least entertaining to kind of listen to me speaking to an audience that isn't you about a topic that I'm really passionate about, which is chiropractic research. And just kind of to keep that with you, that as, if you guys ever get nervous or if you freak out behind doing a health talk in a new group that you've never spoken to before, just know that as many times as you do it, you're not alone. And I hope that you guys continue to step outside your comfort zone, because people need to hear your message. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cue the music and jump into the podcast, and I will catch you guys next time. Attention chiropractors, slayers of subluxation, unleashers of the imprisoned impulse. I am Dr. Anthony Pellegrino from ChiroEdge, and welcome to this week's episode of the Chiropractic Research Breakdown, where each week we break down the most relevant chiropractic science and philosophy to empower you with the ammo and certainty necessary to change your community from the inside out.
Awesome. We are officially live. Hello, everyone. We are tuning in from Atlanta, Georgia, and New Jersey. So I am here. I am your host, Johnny Reuter. This is the Chiropractic Compass podcast and Facebook Lives, and it's brought to you by the Legendary Chiropractor. So with all that being said, we are here tonight and joined tonight by the incredible Dr. Anthony Pellegrino. Did I say that correctly, Doc?
You guys said that. I mean, the incredible was nice, but yeah, you got the name right. That was awesome.
That's what matters. The name's important. But Dr. Pellegrino is a practicing chiropractor in New Jersey, like previously mentioned. He absolutely loves chiropractic, and he is all about chiropractic research and how it is extremely beneficial for the chiropractor, the chiropractic student to know, to utilize, and to dive deep into for patient education as well as community education. So without further ado, Doc, I would love for you to give a further brief introduction, share your accolades, share where you went to school, and tell us a little bit of experience of how you got into chiropractic in general.
Cool, man. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. First off, it's been quite a journey to get here. I graduated from Life University in 2015, and what's really funny for me is, actually, my wife and I were talking about it with some friends over the weekend. And the reason I actually even went into chiropractic college was I, was on the path to go to medical school, and just realized I just didn't want to peddle meds my entire life. And so I literally got torn between, do I want to go to podiatry school or chiropractic? So weird. And I was like, well, I don't want to play with either. So I guess I'm going to go to chiropractic college. And because my check cleared, I was accepted. And so I end up in chiropractic college, and I literally went to Life for no reason other than they had a sport health science master's. And I was like, oh, I could get some extra letters behind my name. That'll probably differentiate me in the community. So this is all to say I had no idea what chiropractic is whatsoever, like when I got there. And my wife is actually an RN. She's a nurse, and she's a neonatal ICU nurse. So I'm at Life, and I start hearing people talk about like kids and pediatrics, and like we love kids. So I'm like, I should probably figure out what the heck I'm talking about so my wife will have any respect for me whatsoever, since she knows like everything that there is to know about babies. So I just started getting into like the ICPA, started getting into these different programs. Actually, I was friends or served with Dr. Jeremy Hess, who started Amped when I was down there. And when they were getting started, like honestly, I just kind of shot them a text message. I shot Dr. Jeremy a text message one day, and I was like, "Hey man, if you need any help with any of the events coming up for Amped, just let me know." I don't know. I mean, you seem like a really guy who's like really on top of it. So sometimes when I say something like that, it's bull. I have no intention of actually helping. So I did that. And 4 minutes later, the guy texting back, he's like, yeah, meet this guy at this time. We're going to go chalk up the, and I'm like, oh my, what the heck did I just get into? So I went and just met these guys, went all in with just this vitalistic subluxation based path. And for me, coming from like a science background, a research background, one of the things that always used to really, really, really piss me off is I have this like, I get really fired up and really passionate about things. And one of my pet peeves, it like literally makes me bang my head up against the wall. And I don't know if you encounter this ever either, but is when people say points and like say things that I agree with, right? And then using logic that is flawed and using facts that aren't real. Like that's just like, if you agree with me and I can point holes in your logic, like that drives me nuts. So I would hear people be like, oh, chiropractic boosts immunity by 750%. Like, what the heck is that? Where did that number come from, right? Or like chiropractic reduces labor time by 90% or whatever number gets thrown out. And I used to be like, guys, have we ever actually read any of the research that says this? Like, is this actually a true statement? And do we care?
Right.
So I was always kind of fired up, always wanted to like actually make sure the stuff that I said was actually accurate, because like I said, like my wife is one of the smartest people I knew. So sometimes I'd say something, she'd be like, where did you read that? Show me reference. And I'm like, shoot. So at that time, I mean, like kind of going through, I also started really getting into taking care of kids on the autism spectrum, and just really saw just the beauty of the nervous system. And I was publishing a case study, my 14th quarters, right? It's my 14th quarter or 13th quarter, whatever it was. I was publishing a case study in Dr. McCoy's class. And I remembered just kind of going through, and I was really, really, really into neurological mechanisms. Like I really, really care so much about what's actually happening on the inside. And I remembered going through like the neurological section, those 3 chapters in Guyton's textbook of physiology, and going through there and comparing it with my notes from Dr. John Minardi's seminar for ICPA, which, guys, if you have the opportunity, if you like subluxation, if you like kids, take all the ICPA seminars, but heck yeah, get to John Minardi's. Like he really knows his stuff, and he's just awesome. And yeah, I received no dollars for saying that. Actually, I think I've met him like once or twice, but he's just a solid guy. But I'm going through and comparing his notes to what I'm reading in Guyton, and I'm reading, about like mechanoreceptors in the cervical spine. And looking at other research where we can literally see like, physical therapy research that shows that there's dural attachments from the spinal cord into the rectus capitis posterior minor. And that we can just see that any misalignment of the atlas is actually going to cause, and how literally like Wikipedia, which is overall like an anti-chiropractic page. Like it's every asterisk everywhere. Like this is unfounded, blah, 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 blah. And it's like literally Wikipedia says that dural tension can be the cause of headaches and migraines. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think so. Right. And you see that, and you can go trace like how aberrant mechanoreception, like the afferent pathways that's going to go affect the frontal cortex, that's going to affect the amygdala, and how any sort of aberrant information going from the amygdala is going to cause aberrant responses from the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. I started reading psychology books like The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which is something that I read last year, which is just mind-blowing. And he's talking about like the exact implications that we see from trauma and from subluxation, and he's literally listing it out from the psychology perspective and naming almost the exact same mechanism that we look at, and just seeing the cases in our office all the time. And and just being able to actually understand the mechanism. Like, man, it's just one of the things that just gets me fired up in the morning. And it's just one of the reasons I think I'm on this planet, is to just help principal docs, first off, say stuff that's actually real, that's like not Swiss cheese, like that's actually will hold water. Like, there's so much good stuff that we have out there, yet we, like, as a profession, heard a soundbite from somebody from like 1946 from research that was maybe published in 1923, and we use that to support what we're saying. And it's like, I mean, you've got 50 years of new good data that have come out since then. Like, why don't we shift what we're saying a little bit into something that actually means something?
Yeah, absolutely, Doc. I love your energy. I love your passion. I love what you're doing with research and bringing it to the masses, because you will talk about your ChiroEdge program, because I think it's really important for docs to get their hands on that. But you want patients to understand what we're doing at a scientific level, but you also want us to be able to go out into our communities and, when we do refer a patient, or we don't lose that patient, because we can have an intelligent conversation about what is taking place. And when whatever pathology or anomaly has taken place that we couldn't take care of, send them back, because the power of chiropractic. If you can communicate that with a medical doctor, with an OT, with a PT, whatever it might be, if you can communicate that, you're not going to lose patients when you refer them. And I think that's a big thing that research can do for us. But also from a chiropractic student perspective, when it comes to chiropractic research, we tend to, like you said, we latch on to one statistic or one quote, and we run with it, right? We go straight to Facebook and we're like, hey, everyone needs to know this. Chiropractors cure headaches. Chiropractors do this. It's nuts. And, it's not valid. It's not good. And there's no references ever listed. It's just like a quote from a study, and no one knows where it came from. And then there's a whole Facebook fight that we talked about off camera before this live. But it's just, it turns into that, right? And so I want to ask you, how can a chiropractor today integrate more research into what they're doing with, like, in patient communication, in their office, no matter what it is? How can they integrate that into their office?
That's a great question, man. So first off, before we get into a doctor today, I'm going to address student, because you're at Life right now. Obviously, I put out a ton of free content. The podcast I have, the Chiropractic Research Breakdown, but like get that on your drive. But the number one thing that you need to do is, in the Life University library, is backlogged to like 1984, all the way back to cassette tapes on purpose with Christopher Kent and Pat Gentempo. When I was in school, I went through every disc, all three: science, philosophy, and science, philosophy, and politics, from 1994 forward. So like 20 years I put in of on purpose and listened to, and like that is that's the best thing out there. And if I can achieve with my podcast 1/10 of what Chris Kent and Pat Gentempo have done for me, if I could help one person with that, and they've helped thousands, I will consider everything that I do to be a success. So thank you to those two. Those guys are awesome. For docs now, honestly, like it's time, and you can just see how I just learn from everybody else. Like, half the stuff that I say is just stuff I get from other people, and I just drink a lot of coffee and get fired up about it. Yeah. I remember listening to a Dan Sullivan training, and he even has a program that's competing to mine, but I don't care because he's a smart guy. Dan Sullivan, like, I remember listening to him speak and being like, we as docs just need to drop this like bone on nerve model, and like it makes sense, but we need to drop it because it's from the most basis of explanation. Yeah. But like, pressure on a nerve is not going to explain polycystic ovarian syndrome. Like, it's not going to explain PCOS. And I'm sorry if you disagree with me. I don't care. It's just not going to adequately explain it. Like, we're talking brain body communication. We are talking about sympathetic stress. We are talking about sympathetic dominance. Like, it's a brain thing, right? Dr. Dan is right. Like, we got to go back to the brain. Mm-hmm. So the number one thing that you can do is learn it so that you own it, right? Yeah. Listen to content, listen to other people, figure it out, and just get that certainty to know that regardless of what's coming into your office, because you're simply improving balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic, then you're actually correcting reasons why we might be in imbalance. Like, just actually, you just need to actually understand those things. In terms of your education to your community, I am a huge huge proponent for drip education. When I opened up my practice, one of the things that I did, I think it was one of the best things that I did, was I made it a mission to give out a different educational handout in my office every single day. And I didn't do it every day. I did 3 a week. All right. I figured that was enough. We're open 4 days. We did 3 a week, and we did one of the repeats on our slower days. Right. That was so much work to like constantly be on top of and read research. And the next thing I know, like I'm resorting to something that I read somewhere, and I'm like, man, I didn't have time to put this together. Is this actually accurate or not? I have tons of MDs, PTs. We've got like literally a certain percentage of my office is OTs. And like, I think one of the reasons they like us, because like they're going to take what I say and they're going to run with it and tell other people. So like, if I say something stupid and they repeat it, then like now they're in trouble. That's not good for anybody. Right. So I want everybody to be in the right place. So it kind of was falling down. So I got one of my buddies, or two of my buddies, Dr. Dan McClyman, who has a practice in Royersford, Pennsylvania, who's just a rock star, and Dr. Kendall Price, who's huge in the CBP, who does a lot with the CBP community. And we were just like, man, like we're all doing this. Why don't we just get together and just each, like one of us every week, we'll just make handouts for each other's offices. I was like, man, that took a huge load off. And we're like doing that. And then people are like, man, how do we get these? Like this content coming out was awesome. So then what I did was I like didn't sleep for 4 days, and I like customized software that allowed me to like customize this for tons of people at once. And now we get to distribute to like 70 or 80 chiropractic offices around the country. So whether or not you want to use my service or something else, like get on there, know what's going on, understand the research, and constantly be putting it out into the community, like constantly be handing it out. Practices of ours that use this type of stuff. We've got people who they've got nurses under care, and the nurses will literally come into their office, take all their handouts for the week, and they'll go put it up in the break room at the hospital, which is awesome. I have a pediatrician under care who came to my office and said, you know, I have people from all over, and I just really want them to, like, I really want to start referring and giving this information out. So she literally came into my office. I told her about the ICPA. She came to my list, into my office with a list of ICPA docs, and he was like, highlight the ones that you want me to refer to. And I was like, can I just highlight me? Is that okay? And she said, no, you can't. So I went through, and I was just like, you know, honestly, anybody here who has any sort of certification, I highly recommend. So please like go refer to that. So now we have people getting referred to all the time. And it's not because we like hammered it down. It's just because we presenting things in a logical way. We explain the actual mechanism to people, speak to their level, and just constantly keep the education in front of them. And honestly, that's what I would recommend to docs is get the content, understand it, and then just start distributing it, and not all at once, just little by little by little by little. If you read a research study that fires you up, grab your phone and put it in front of your face and just talk about it. Just talk about it for 3 minutes and just do that constantly. We get referrals and refer to people from all over the country. I have somebody actually just saw them where somebody saw a video about chiropractic and MS about the Raymond DiMedi and Scott Rose's research that I just talked. It was just me talking about research. I think nobody finds that interesting at all. But they have somebody who's still under care from 3 years ago with MS who's gotten amazing results, and they're out in California, and I'm here in New Jersey. So just grab a phone, put it in front of your face, just talk about whatever fires you up. And for God's sake, talk about flipping chiropractic, man. Yeah. Like, stop talking about colon blow and stop talking about like foot baths, and just own the one thing and do that, man. Everybody knows. Walk up to somebody on the street and say, Dr. Johnny, do you think we need to eat right and exercise to be healthy? And they'll be like, yeah. Right. But walk up to the average person on the street and be like, do you think we need to have a clear nervous system, like have it clear from subluxation to be healthy? Be like, what the heck is subluxation? I thought it was joint dysfunction. So yeah, it's just own it and spread it.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more with what you're saying. I wrote down, obviously, and circled drip content. I think that's really, really important to do, because I think it's not, I know for me personally, it's not overwhelming at that point, right? It's digestible. It's okay. Here are the 5 takeaways from this research article, or 5 takeaways that I need to know about my body, my nervous system, and how it's functioning. And I think it's really important for people to be broken down into bullet points. And it sounds, kind of cliche or simple, but I think that's what we have to do in chiropractic is keep it simple, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And so, Doc, I want to talk to you about the research, though, like the actual research, because a lot of times we'll see if you are a research reader or if you love to dive into research, if you're a student or a doc out there listening to this right now and you love to dive into research, I want to ask you, Doc, if you find an article that doesn't necessarily, like, we have to understand as chiropractors that the research isn't going to be chiropractic specific all the time. But is it okay, Doc, for us to relate it back to what we're doing? What is the credibility? What is the validity behind that? How do we work with that?
That is a great question. And honestly, with all the education we do, I try to find a non-chiropractic article to read and to go through every single week. One of the things that I find most fascinating is that of all the the anger that I get from people when I talk about like subluxation, it's all from chiropractors, man. It's not from anybody else. Like, I mean, how beautiful is it to have like pediatricians under care who say the word subluxation and are like,
it's awesome.
Like it's beautiful. And like, and the smart people, right? Like we have biostatisticians under care who have published like massive research and stuff like that. So, I mean, all the hate we get is from other chiropractors, not from any other profession, except for physios in physios in UK. They hate me. Oh my gosh. I don't know why, but specifically the UK physios don't really like it. But one of the things, there's a couple different things that I look at in terms of research when I want to go make, I like to call it a bridge article. Yeah. And which is that, let's say we have a chiropractic outcome measure. Like one of my favorite is HRV. And no, we don't have like the largest study in the entire world saying that chiropractic always impacts HRV, which is mind blowing to me because we literally have thousands of chiropractors across the world who use the insight and literally use HRV as a clinical outcomes measure and are showing it improved every single day in practice.
Yeah.
So how we don't have like a solid article on that, it stinks, but I still go with it just because like, we just see so much clinical certainty with it that it's awesome. And also just as a disclaimer as well, if you guys do research, like, dude, I'm just talking about this. I mean, I'm not putting my money where my mouth is either. Right. So don't view me like a savior or anything like that. Like I'm not out there doing the research. I'm just talking about why it's not there. And it's super easy to point fingers. So there's definitely a plan I have in the future, but just not right now for me. So for those of you guys like Heidi Havoc, like Joel Alcantara, just thank like when you see those guys, thank them because they're the ones who are making me ranting possible. So one of the favorite things that I love to look at is I go into PubMed every week and I search heart rate variability, and I'll search sympathetic, and I'll search parasympathetic. And what's really interesting for me is to see tons of data, like amazing amounts of data relating improvements in HRV to anything from depression and anxiety to I've seen metastasis of cancer to bedwetting in children to all this different stuff. Yet it's like if we as chiropractors even mention that stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, you're a quack. You can't talk about bedwetting. What? But I think that understanding that and seeing and what the most valuable thing for me there and understanding and seeing that kind of research isn't actually just seeing it all the time, actually reading it is like by understanding what the medical community is shifting towards, which is vagal stimulation and sympathetic and parasympathetic balance, right? But what they're trying to do is they're trying to do drugs and they're trying to use implements to stimulate those two things, right? Understanding and saying, hey, that's what your research is pointing to, right? So you understand that this thing that you are looking at relates to all of this, and it's in PubMed, and it's in good journals, it's in Nature, it's in all these different places. To just simply say, hey, chiropractic helps with that nervous system adaptability, it helps with the HRV scores, it helps with even vagal tone. This is just a less invasive option. Do you think maybe we should try this first? I don't understand who would disagree with that logic.
Right.
If you can show that chiropractic is actually safe, which, I mean, you can look at one article and read it completely two different ways. Like go back and read the Vora study, VOHRA, where she's just this medical doctor who just smashes chiropractic for pediatrics for efficacy, and then read a week later, Joel Alcantara comes out with this article that literally goes line by line and is like, you just completely read this the wrong way. Like you were out on a mission. And it's two different people looking at the exact same data with two different conclusions, right? So if you want to see a problem, you can find a problem with everything. But actually understanding that, understanding where they're going is saying, hey, listen, this is the most important thing, right? Doc, we believe the things that you believe, right? No medical doctor gets fired up. Be like, I mean, except for maybe vaccination. Like, I got to give 15 people Imitrex today. This is awesome. Like, they don't get fired up about that. And as much as we want to villainize that profession, they want to see things be less invasive. Right. If you look at vagal stimulators, the whole new thing they're doing is transcutaneous vagal stimulators. They don't have to do implants, so they can be less invasive. And people are getting fired up about this, right? So they believe the things that they believe. They just don't, because we're so confused because we're determining whether or not like we should be just pulling on toes or actually like correcting the interference in the nervous system. Like, we don't know what's happening, so we don't get to tell them, so they don't know. So be the one to tell them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we can take an article that doesn't pertain necessarily to chiropractic, but I think a lot of people draw conclusions. Would you agree with that?
And what do you mean by that? People draw a conclusion.
If you read an article that says heart rate variability will decrease based on, some sort of stimulus that isn't chiropractic,
right?
Or some sort of external thing that isn't chiropractic,
right?
People are like, well, how do we tie that whole entire article back to chiropractic? And then they give the credit to chiropractic. I think that people take leaps too often in research when they are, referring to it helping, or with chiropractic helping it, and to validate it. If that makes any sense. I don't know if I just ranted or not.
No, I think I got you. And that is a big thing as well, right? If you watch, and I'm sure you have, like Reggie Gold's like great chiropractic debate.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest thing I took away from that was the look on their faces when he said, we don't treat anything. Right. And it's been a while since I watched it. Actually, it's on our list. We're going to do it. We're going to watch it at a team training next week. But like the looks and how they just could not comprehend, like, and a lot of the hate that I get, the messages that I get on like my videos and stuff like that, like it's because people just, even chiropractors, they can't comprehend that, like, it's not a treatment.
Right.
Like, so it's just about creating, like, the salutogenic model is literally just about creating the environment in which we have the best opportunity possible to be healthy. So I don't think oftentimes it's too much. I mean, if you're saying like, acupuncture improved heart rate variability and these people improved like migraines, so because acupuncture did it, chiropractic did it, I don't think that that's appropriate. But to write about or blog about or talk about how improvements in improvements in the function of the nervous system relates to decreases in rates of anxiety. I think that using that and talking about that, be like the function of the nervous system. So wouldn't you want your nervous system to be functioning optimally? I don't think that that's a stretch because I know that chiropractic helps somebody's nervous system function optimally. Also with it, I mean, maybe it's not the biggest practice builder, but literally in my education, one of the things that I say, and I'm certainly not an expert at building a business, building a chiropractic office. I have a really great one and it's phenomenal. And I think it's mostly because my team is just amazing. But one of the things I never want people to start care on false pretenses. So one of the things that I so incredibly say to people is like, listen, I mean, like you walk into my office, like there's kids running around, there's testimonials on the walls, there's research studies everywhere and everything like that. But the improvements that people see have absolutely nothing to do with chiropractic care. Like they just really don't. Everything has to do is the fact that when that person improves, it's because that's the life that they were supposed to be living this whole time. So it's almost bittersweet, right? And It's like, we look at it easy, like kids with bedwetting is just such an easy thing. Because if you go even on the ICPA page and it's like, oh, kiddo with bedpetting, what does everybody say? I don't know if you're in there, but I'll tell you what everybody says. They're like, check the sacrum. And I'm like, man, okay, yeah, sacrum's probably subluxated, but it's like, do I think that every kid with a subluxated sacrum that wets the bed that I adjust is going to see change with that? No, I don't. And I don't make promises and I don't make guarantees. Don't you want to find out? Yeah. And I think that that's kind of the way that we need to view our philosophy and how that drives the research that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. With Heidi Havoc doing, more and more research these days and getting back to the brain and getting back to the nervous system when it comes to, the proven research out there that says subluxation and the visceral subluxation or the vertebral subluxation complex is hindering nervous system function, but it's not hard bone on soft tissue. How do we get this message through to the vitalistic chiropractors, or the quote principled chiropractors who are kind of stuck in that way?
Yeah, man. Some people, they just don't want to, right? Yeah. I mean, like, if you've built a 7-figure practice saying one thing and somebody comes in and says it's not true, like, you're not changing.
Right.
Like, you're not. And because they see change all the time in their practice, like, well, I adjusted 6 people today who saw improvements in their asthma. So of course chiropractic helps asthma. Like, if that's their mindset, oh man, like, and it frustrates me because, like, I don't know there. Heidi Havoc, I'm a big fan of recently, because she used to always say joint dysfunction and spinal manipulation. And in her most recent article that she published, she said subluxation and adjustment. And she came, and which made me jump from the ceiling, and she got a ton of heat from that. Of course. If you search Heidi Havoc, like, there's people talking crap about that.
Yeah.
And I hope that she continues and shoves it in their face.
Yeah.
One of my favorite studies to look at, I mean, anything that Deed Harrison comes out with is just read it and just implement it. Amazing. His research on not necessarily subluxation itself, but cervical curve and impact on quality of life and elsewhere is, to me, is undeniable. And it's like, well, yes, if chiropractic guys improve that, if you can actually improve that with whatever technique that you're doing, then that makes sense. But honestly, probably my favorite research of all time is, I mentioned it earlier, is the upright MRI study with Raymond Damadian and Scott Rosa, where they actually looked at, on upright MRI, restrictions in cerebral spinal fluid flow in individuals with multiple sclerosis. And what they found was that when in a weight-bearing position, they could actually see misalignments, and they just call it misalignments because the guy who's publishing it is not a chiropractor. He's a medical doctor. He's literally the inventor of upright MRI. He says spinal misalignments actually restricts cerebral spinal fluid flow. He hypothesizes that because of that, it builds up pressure of cerebral spinal fluid in the brain, which leases out and causes an autoimmune reaction. He brings in an upper cervical chiropractor, specifically Atlas Orthogonal, to correct those misalignments. And what does he find? Improvements in like 85% of cases. So awesome. It's like, this is the type of stuff. That has chiropractic in it, but This is the type of stuff that we just need to really need to understand and to latch onto. And that same mechanism, right? The exact same mechanism. And this is the important thing. And what I do, and people can disagree with me or not, I really don't care. That exact same mechanism that he described, that Dr. Damadian described, I see that exact mechanism relate to so many other things, right? To other autoimmune issues, to so many different things and more. So understanding that and latching onto that, I think, is what's really important for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the vitalistic chiropractor, with Dr. Liam Schubel, I interviewed him last night, and we were chatting about how he was really disappointed in the fact that, vitalism is getting so much heat. How would you argue or defend vitalism with research? How would you go about doing that?
Defending vitalism with research, and just so I know, because I don't know if the term vitalism is like out there, ridiculously defined.
Right.
So when you mention that, so I don't go off on a 20-minute tangent about something that you weren't even asking, just tell me exactly what you mean by vitalism.
So I think that a lot of people, mechanism or vitalism, healing the body, is it, this belief, or is it actually occurring? All living things are meant to, live optimally, is what they always say, right? But is there research to back that up?
Yeah, man. That's actually a really, really, really.
It's probably a deeper question than we can.
How much time do we have?
We got as much time as you want.
If you actually look at it, and this is actually really interesting. If you look at, and I don't really use the term vitalism too often. So okay. I don't know if I'm the person to use about that, but what I do use is the term salutogenesis pretty often.
Okay.
Probably just because I love the ICPA and they really latched onto that term, and they have a lot of really, really good content on that. But if you actually understand what salutogenesis is, it's an entropic model right? So if you look at what entropy is, it's basically the concept that in a closed system, all matter will go to chaos, right? So this concept is that if we left to our own devices, like if you look at what allopathic medicine is, allopathic medicine literally means that if there's nothing wrong, you're great. Okay, you're perfect. If we can't find anything wrong with you, you're perfect. And only when our numbers deviate from normal do we take something to bring our numbers back to normal. That's allopathy. So they actually believe that the body is perfect as it is.
Right.
The salutogenic model actually means that no, if we're left to our own devices, things are going to go to chaos. So we need to make positive decisions each and every day to continue on the proper path.
Right.
Is there, research to show that if you put somebody in a closed system that their body's going to go to crap? No, not that I know of. It makes sense philosophically. It makes sense to me neurologically. Like the mechanism makes sense. And I don't think anybody would really disagree with that. I think what we need to talk about here is when we do make those positive decisions and we do that for a sustained period of time, what is possible?
Right.
And I don't honestly know. And I think that the answer is different to every person, right? I think it's definitely different for every person. In Bigness of the Fellow Within, right? I think BJ Palmer talks about how the only difference between, I don't remember the exact example, but like me and Tiger Woods is, I think, intent. Obviously he didn't mention Tiger Woods, but he's like, the intention over time. And I don't think that I agree with that either. I think that there's such things as like differences in just ability and skill and all this different stuff.
Right.
And, but I'm all into finding out what making positive decisions over a long period of time looks like. And you've got Health and Wellness Score, which is Curtis Fedorchuk's thing. If you don't, you got to go interview those guys, Curtis Fedorchuk and Doug Lightstone, and what they're doing with Health and Wellness Score. And they're compiling data that shows that, what making positive chiropractic decisions for years and years will do to our quality of life. You've got things like the Blank study from Network Spinal Analysis, which is the largest, was when I read it, the largest study in chiropractic. You've got the PBRNs from the ICPA that are coming out and showing on a large scale what quality of life looks like. And when I think about it, when I look at that, I think that it's easy to get caught into like specifics, but I think those quality of life studies are the best thing that we have for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because quality of life is huge in chiropractic, and we can not only relate it back to it, but we can show that we improve through, whatever type of measurement, whatever type of technique, whatever type of, if you want to talk range of motion, adding to quality of life, I think we can do that. And so with that all being said, Doc, I think that, research has to play a vital role in whatever you're doing as a chiropractor, because it is because of, we have a lot of internal fighting, and we talk about that at least once on every podcast show about, how chiropractors are hindering chiropractic. I mean, it is what it is. But if we can better align ourselves to respond from outsiders and naysayers, even in our own profession, I think that it's to rely on the research. And I think we have to do that in order to move this profession forward. Otherwise, we're sinking ship, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Doc, do you want to mention your program? I know you have a chiropractic program. We talked about it a little bit before, but it's called the ChiroEdge. And I believe you were mentioning that, it's drip content, it's handouts for your office, for your practice members, for your patients. And I think that it would be really great for people to be able to get in touch with you, get in touch with that and that program so that they can get research into their office.
Yeah, man. I would love some shameless self-plugging. I'm not too worried about that at all. I'm looking at the viewership. I'm ready for it all to go down in the corner.
No.
Yeah. So first off, the number one thing, if you're not putting new information out to people in your community each and every day, figure out and start. Just start. It builds retention. It builds referrals. I can't tell you how many times, like, I'll hand out some information to somebody, like, every once in a while. We're talking to our team about it. We do a lot. We specialize like a lot on kids. We talk about a lot about kids. and I'll hand out or information to somebody who's always like, well, I don't have any kids. I'm like, so yeah, you never encounter kids on an ever. Okay, whatever. But then they're like, it's that one time that they read it and they're like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who I need to give this to, right? So the concept here is what we do is we come out with 3 every week. We give you 3 with all your office logo and brand and information on this. 3 evidence-informed newsletters with references on the bottom each and every week. They're written. I used to write everything. I'm not a great writer. I give outlines, and we have somebody who's just really, really good at writing at the level that your patients are actually going to understand, who comes in and takes like my ADD brain and makes it actually be easily digestible. So we have 3 of those every week. And then part of the mission as well is that we also give you guys 3 corresponding social media posts that put a quote from the handout on those posts. And once again, that has all your the social media post has all your office branding. Like you can't even tell it's from us, which is really, really, really cool. Because when it's on social media, you don't want somebody else's logo or information on that. You want them all to be yours. So somebody can be like, hey, this is really awesome. Like, I want to share this. Be like, yeah, actually, our Facebook post of the day was on there. Go ahead and share that. And people do that all the time, or share on our social media, our Facebook posts all the time. We get so many referrals from that, which is really cool. So if you guys are interested in getting that type of content for your community to really just do the work for you, I mean, even it's good just for your own education in terms of seeing what's out there, since I basically stay really on top of everything that's been published. Everything we write about is recent. You guys can go on ChiroEdgemedia.com. I think we have like a 2-week free trial on there where there's no credit card required if you just want to put in your info. I will tell you, if you don't put in a credit card, we'll give you 2 weeks of content, but it's generic. If you do want it to put in that information and actually give us a shot to actually like change your community, that's when it comes with like your logo and everything like that, but it's still a 2-week free trial. You don't get charged for 2 weeks.
Awesome. I absolutely love what you're doing. I love that you're bringing it to the masses, to patients that need to understand what we do as chiropractors and how that all relates to chiropractic and their body healing and that salutogenic model that you kept talking about this entire podcast. And anything in closing, Doc, that you want to mention to chiropractors, chiropractic students? I always love to ask this question to my interviewees. Put yourself back in the student's shoes. What would you do differently than you did when you were in school?
I would stop studying as much. And I didn't study that much. Honestly, if you're a student, the ability to create excuses, I think, is just the highest thing. We're so good at it. And you're always going to be busy. I promise you, if you're going to build a good practice quickly, you will never have more free time than you do as a student. And dude, I've graduated in exactly 14 quarters while working 2 jobs. Like, and my wife worked as well, so that was part of it, because she like was able to pay bills and stuff like that. Like, and I took 30 credits at a time. So like, I get it. I get how busy we are, but get into an office and volunteer your time and get into an office that practices the exact way that you want to practice, and never turn back, and steal all their paperwork. Like, wash their toilets and look how they have things arranged in the bathroom. Like, know that thing in and out, and then go recreate it for yourself. All right. And then you know what you do once you're successful, then you go grab and one thing and one thing and one thing and one thing and one thing. You split test. Okay. So you go and you just take somebody else that resonates with you, right? Just like, I'm not going to go to a practice that does weight loss because they make 7 figures, because I give no craps about weight loss whatsoever. So like, go to one that we resonate with, take that, recreate it. And then once you are successful, because it's actually been proven, then you go split test and change one thing or another. Overall, more than anything else, the biggest piece of advice that I can give to students is, it's going to be a couple words here. It's really important. All right. Give a shit, right? Like, it matters what you do, what you say, your excellence matters. Like, if we keep graduating shitty chiropractors who don't know how to correct subluxation, that is when subluxation-based care is going to disappear. Because how can you keep it alive when nobody can actually freaking correct it, and nobody's going to get better any longer, and it's just going to fall apart?
Absolutely. Whew. Thank you for that, Doc. That was really important. I hope people watch until the end, because that is what this show is all about. I'm going to do some shameless plugging, Dr. Anthony, so please bear with me. This is the Chiropractic Compass podcast, brought to you by the Legendary Chiropractor online community. Thank you so much, all of you, for tuning in, for joining us. And be sure, if you are a chiropractor out there or a doc looking to hire your next best associate, your next best independent contractor, or even looking to sell your practice. I had someone reach out to me the other day looking to post for a licensed massage therapist or looking to post for a CA because they're opening soon. You can post all of those chiropractic jobs on our job board. So we just launched it on Sunday. Early adopters get half off starting. I mean, it is an incredible deal, $83.20 a month to post your job for either 3 months or 6 months at a time. You can't beat that. So with that being said, head to postachiropracticjob.com right now. It's scrolling underneath, and post your job advert with us. Dr. Anthony, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You are incredible. Your research mind is awesome. I hope that chiropractors out there who are doing the research continue to do it so that people like Dr. Anthony can keep informing the masses about how important chiropractic is to their vitality, to their life, to their quality of life, and everything in between. Because we don't know what preservation does for the human body. And we talked about that in the podcast. We have no idea what a long-term chiropractic care does for the body, or long-term, positive habits do for the body, because every individual is different. And you know what? It's research like Heidi Havoc's that are making the biggest of difference for future students. And also take Doc's word for it. Get out there, do something to make yourself better, either in the art, the science, the philosophy, or the business of chiropractic this week. Don't wait until tomorrow. Start today, start tonight, and do what you can to be the best chiropractor you can be. Detect and analyze vertebral subluxations. Doc, any closing remarks?
I think I got everything. I think I got nothing left.
Man. Thank you so much for being on the show again, and thank you for just everything that you do. I really appreciate you. It was so great to meet you and chat with you, and I hope that we do this again in the future.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.